After discovering the New World, Christopher Columbus was invited by the Grand Cardinal of Spain to come to Barcelona for a banquet where he was introduced to the highest ranking nobleman in the country. At least one of the noblemen became weary of the attention and praise Columbus was receiving, however, and he said, "What you have done is really no big deal. If you had not discovered the New World, someone else would have come along and discovered it." Tradition says Columbus did not reply directly to the man, but picked up an egg from the table and asked, "Do you think you can balance this egg on its end on this tabletop?" The man took the egg and tried unsuccessfully to balance it on its end. Finally, in frustration, he replied, "It's impossible." The egg was passed from one man to the next sitting at the table, and each one tried unsuccessfully to balance it. Finally, it was returned to Columbus. Columbus tapped the egg on the surface of the tabletop just hard enough to smash the end of it flat, and then he sat the egg on the flat end. At that point, Columbus' critic jumped up from his seat, pointed at the egg, and protested, "I could have done that if I had just thought." Columbus replied, "Yes, and you could have discovered the New World if you had just thought." I'm convinced the major difference in people is not skin color, facial characteristics, or bodily form as much as it is mental force. Some people allow themselves to think and others do not. How many times have children hurt their parents not by design but because they did not stop and think? How many times have people hurt themselves or the church because they did not think through the consequences of their actions? Often people will defend unsavory entertainment such as immoral movies and pornography because they say it has not led them to do anything bad. This argument, however, does not take into account the content of their minds. Solomon says, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he," Proverbs 23 and verse 7. We can remain meek and mild, yet have a brain that is swirling with the most poisonous of images. When Jimmy Carter was running for president in 1976, he gave an interview to Playboy magazine. When the interview asked Carter if he had ever committed adultery, Carter answered no, but he added that he had committed adultery in his heart. The media laughed at his answer because it hardly seemed like a moral infringement. Carter, however, was referring to a Bible truth that it is possible to commit sin in the privacy of our minds that will be exposed and punished by God in judgment. In spite of these Bible warnings, unthinking Christians will sometimes expose themselves to dangerous influences just to prove how strong they believe themselves to be. It is the spiritual equivalent of tightening your abdominal muscles and challenging someone to punch you in the stomach so you can boast afterwards, "See, it didn't hurt." We cannot always tell at the moment, however, how things are going to affect us in the long run. The evil influences planted in our heart today may not come to full fruition for several years, but they will come to fruition. Paul says, "Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap," Galatians 6 and verse 7. Solomon warns, "Can a man take fire into his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Can a man walk on hot coals and his feet not be seared?" Proverbs 6 verses 27 and 28. Solomon is saying that if you play with fire, you're going to get burned, and there are no exceptions. Jesus says our thoughts determine our speech, behavior, and character, Matthew 15 verses 18 through 20. In essence, he is saying that whatever you dwell upon in your mind will tend to occur in your life. If you continue to think as you have always thought, you will continue to act as you have always acted. If you continue to act as you have always acted, you will continue to get what you've always gotten. If you want different results in your life, then you have to begin by changing your mind. If you have been filling your mind with evil thoughts, you must change your mind and begin filling it with the Word of God, Psalm 119 and verse 11. Paul explains that we must set our minds on things above and not on the things of this earth, Colossians 3 verses 1 and 2, and that the constant themes of our thoughts should include the things that are true, honest, just, pure, lovely, and of good report, Philippians 4 and verse 8. As the Word of God instructs our conscience, we must think carefully about the immediate and long-term consequences of our behavior. We will save ourselves a lot of grief and will not have to face the lingering self-recriminations of if only I had thought. Thank you for joining us today. Have a blessed day.